All right, good morning and welcome to the Thursday morning, July 21st of 22 edition of Sidelines. Rob Brown here with you in Atlanta, SEC Media Days. Great event. We had Kimberly Bowden on yesterday, the CEO of the National College Football Hall of Fame here in Atlanta. And she and her team, along with the folks at the Omni together, it is a logistical masterpiece. Just a great event. We've got a great show lined up. Jimmy Hodge with us. Frank Duffy, our first guest, of course, be one of our favorites that we've had on here. Joined the team here about 3 months ago. Dudley Dawson of hogville.net talking about the Razorbacks. His takeaway from Sam Pittman's appearance at SEC Media Days yesterday, what he talked about. In the second segment, we'll be joined by Gary Harris, WVUA TV 23, Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. In the third segment, top of the second hour, Executive Director of the National College Football Playoff, Bill Hancock, will join us to weigh in. I know we've got some questions for him, and I know he'll have answers. Smart man. And in the fourth segment, Bo Carter weighs in from the Big 12 office out in, I got to say it, guys. Well, I can't, but I will. The Metroplex. That's one of my least favorite terms, but out in Dallas, headquarters of the Big 12, Arlington, and just get his take on what's the latest as the country, East, West Coast, the expansion, what's going to happen in the middle. And I really think the Big 12, a lot's going to fall in their lap. They may have become a de facto really good conference because of all this, but I'm worried about those other conferences. But anyway, a lot to talk about. We'll be with you 8 to 10 a.m. Central, 9 to 11 a.m. east of the Chattahoochee. If you don't hear us live, check us out, 680thefan.com, the podcast part. Great folks over there. And then remember, after we're off the air, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, Dan Matthews, executive producer of the Chuck Oliver Show, Southern Sports Today, and Chuck Oliver, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1, right after us. So you got 4 hours of great college football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, and what have you. But we're glad to be here. Let's get started. Dudley Dawson, veteran journalist, true grit journalist. Dudley, what was your takeaway from Sam Pittman as he addressed the crowds, the masses here in Atlanta for SEC Media Days?
Oh, I think he felt pretty comfortable. I don't know about the first couple of years. He's always been a very welcoming and inviting guy, and I think people like him because of who he is. And he was, very, very relaxed up there yesterday. I think he thinks he's got a pretty good football team, and you could tell that what he was saying. But he seemed to be enjoying himself, and most coaches would after the turnaround that he helped initiate last year.
This is how I see it. I think the reason why he's so relaxed when he's in front of the media is because he works his team so hard that they expect to win on game day. But he's very comfortable. He fits Arkansas like Matt Dillon fit being the marshal on Gunsmoke. He's that.
He really does.
He really is. Yeah, and I'm impressed with it. I call them the Fighting Pittmans a lot of time. But Dudley, what from last year? Hogs are 9-4. Probably ended up with the record. Probably a couple of games they could have won, and a couple of ones they won. Maybe they could have lost. But 9-4, 3-7, 9-4. It's year 3. Nobody is going to be sleeping when the Razorbacks come to town this year. I mean, they're the 23rd winningest program in the history of college football. You cross that bridge into Arkansas from Memphis, it's one state, one team, damn proud state. Let's talk about that.
Well, I think that it's interesting. This year is going to be, there's going to be no sneaking up on people. I don't know that I'm ready to say Arkansas is the hunted now. They're certainly, I think, somewhere in the transitioning phase from punter to hunted. But there's going to be no Saturdays in the league this year where Arkansas goes to play or has somebody here to play that a team isn't going to put in a full week of effort, and there'll be no looking ahead as there might have been during the Chad Morris era, in terms of where the program was. And so I think he's got his football team in great shape. They're having a tremendous recruiting year. Already got 23 commitments, and depending on which recruiting service you look at, they're seventh, to ninth, I think, in the ratings. And it's really good for Arkansas, who has only been in the top 15 once in the last 20 years, and top 25 times. And so, obviously, there's going to be some probably people who move ahead of them, but I think they certainly are in position to have a top 15 class, and still have some big guys out there that they really want to get it. And you talk about that, but the 9 guys that they got out of the transfer portal all seem like they're going to come in and contribute right away in need positions.
Yeah, just one other thing noteworthy. I read where Chad Morris is now going to be an offensive analyst at University of Central Florida with his old friend Gus. It kind of reminds me of that love affair Will Muschamp had with Kurt Roper. Wherever he went, it was rough. I don't know. I know one thing. Chad Morris, I don't know why, because Chad Morris had great success at Clemson. Those 4 years there, he took Clemson to the level where they are now. It also helps to have a superstar quarterback, come in. But I'm looking here, Jimmy and Frank, what Dudley just said. I think the Hogs will be the honey this year more than they realize, because they've got a quarterback coming back who was the leading rusher, and I think he's in better shape. And he's had 1 interception in his last 257 passes. Jalen Catalan is healthy. If he's there for the last, 5-6 games of the season last year, guys, Arkansas probably hits double digits. Regardless, that's how this guy might be your best defensive back in the league. But Jimmy, you look at this Hog team. You tell me, how do you want to attack them?
Well, again, you just have to, again, realize that this is a very experienced team now. And you've got a roster full of players that have experience winning. And first of all, their mindset is different from 2 years ago. They've got a lot of players that are convinced every time they go out on the field they can win. So you're going to have to be prepared to begin with. But the fact that Jefferson has had a full season behind him is huge. But not only that, he had a very successful season, and it resulted in wins. And, they were 1-2 point conversion from, being a double-digit win team. So they know that they're good. They know they have all the parts. From this point on, it's just staying in contact with the rest of the league as far as recruiting goes, really hitting Texas hard, because we all know that Oklahoma and Texas do much better in recruiting when they're winning. And now Arkansas it has reached that success level where they have the attention of all the big-time recruits now. And the only thing that worries me about Arkansas this season is that schedule.
Boy, I tell you, no kidding.
I'm telling you what, that would be tough for any team in the country to navigate. And the one game that really stares me right in the eyes is that road game at BYU. People do not realize how tough a place that is to play. I mean, those fans, and with an SEC team coming to town, which takes place maybe once a decade, in the middle of a fierce SEC a regular season slate, I tell you what, it's critical for the Hogs to stay injury-free as much as you possibly can at the critical position. So there's a lot of variables, and Dudley, that's the one that you really don't have control of. Nobody knows when an injury is going to take place, to which player, at what position, and the severity of it. How long is that player going to be out? So there's a lot of intangibles involved, but in a normal world in which, you'll have sporadic injuries, the Hogs are really set, despite the schedule, to really have a strong year. But you know as well as anybody, the key to having a big season is winning those close games. Because if you win that first game that goes down to the wire that you're involved in, it gives you confidence for when you face that situation again. If you lose a game like that, you know, it's not devastating or anything, but it certainly doesn't help. But in the back of your mind, if you face that situation again 2 or 3 weeks later, or maybe even the next week in the SEC, you know, sometimes you might just have that lingering doubt, you know, what's going to happen? Are we going to get a bad call or a bad bounce? You know, that type of thing. So it's really critical to win those close games, because then you start to build momentum when you face similar situations later in the season.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you. And we know, looking back at the schedule last year, that they easily could have been 9-4 with different wins and different losses, because there were 4 games, I think, that, you know, were really close there within 10 points and could have gone one way or the other, could have made the season even better, but also could have, you know, had them, you know, 7-6 or whatever. I do think that you talked about BYU, and I've done in my long career, I've done a lot of things, gone to a lot of places, but I've never covered a game at BYU. I'm looking forward to doing that. I think they're, you know, have had a great football program that kind of gets undersold a little bit these last few years. And that's part of a tough non-conference schedule. We all know how tough the conference is. But Arkansas with BYU and Liberty, you know, added on to the schedule this year, and they've got a little date with Missouri State and Bobby Petrino coming to town. So I'm sure that'll be fun, certainly for the writers and all that. But certainly there's a situation where they really, you know, they could be a better football team this year, not win 9. I mean, I could see that very easily. It would be interesting to see how the fans would react. I think they're, you know, behind this team all the way, but you have, you know, few out there who would think if you didn't get to 10 this year, well, you're not making progress. And I'm not sure that's the case.
Yeah, especially Dudley, not against this schedule. I mean, you know, when Jimmy said that, I literally was thinking that in my mind. I was like, you know, I wonder how your Hogs did such a poor job at scheduling on this. I mean, my goodness, you guys have Cincinnati, you got South Carolina, like you said, Missouri State, and that's going to be a geeked up game with Petrino riding back in on his chopper, and then you got this little tussle in Dallas with Texas A&M. And then, and you got this other team that's getting ready to come in town called the Alabama Crimson Tide. Holy mackerel, what a front-loaded schedule you guys have. So we're going to know exactly what the Hogs are going to be doing this year by week 5. Can you speak to Sam Pittman? I was impressed the last couple of years how
Frank, I'll tell you one thing, that schedule you're talking about, Dudley, and Frank, jump back in. We may have lost him.
Type of schedule you guys have coming up. But the good news is that they are coming into, you know, Arkansas, with the exception of that trip to Dallas.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting yesterday to get the writer who asked the question, but he noted that Arkansas was 16-6 against the spread, but also that the schedule was tough. And who didn't like Sam Pittman? You know, the thing I like about him, instead of saying, "Oh, you know, we should try to figure this out and play somebody lesser," he wants to rise to the challenge. And you know, I think that's something that you know is a good attribute for a head coach, a player, whatever. I think the biggest thing over the past couple of years, and I've mentioned this a couple of times on the show, is he got rid of or let's say that the program lost people who were okay with losing, okay with going, you know, 2-10, and okay with going, you know, not winning a conference game for 20 things. And I think
he flipped the culture is what he did. He flipped the culture is what he did.
Absolutely. And let's be honest, you know, I knew him as a great guy, as a great coach. Didn't know how he'd do as a head coach. He certainly exceeded my expectations to this point, and I think he's become one of the more, again, another statement yesterday, become one of the more likable coaches in the conference, if not the in the nation because he's just real, and people like the fact that a guy got his opportunity after all these years of service as an offensive lineman, as an assistant coach, and he's been successful with it. I think he's a blue collar guy, and there's a lot of college football fans out there who have no affiliation with Arkansas that just like the way he's doing things and how he goes about it. If he could, he would have took his shoes off yesterday with his nice suit there. Now that he's lost the 60 pounds, the man loves to have his shoes off and kick back. And again, that's just perfect for this state.
Hey, Lane set the table by taking off his tie. I don't think that's a big stretch. No, I think Sam Pittman is the college football equivalent, to use an analogy from here in Atlanta, Georgia, of Brian Snitker, the lifer that put in his time, that did the work, that was always the yeoman, that always had great offensive lines. I mean, look at that offensive line at Georgia, which I think really propelled Kirby. And to have him have his chance, and like Rob said, I can't remember, maybe with the exception of my LSU when Ogeron was hired, and hopefully Arkansas will have even a better result with that. But I don't think there's been a better fit, maybe with the exception of Ogeron at LSU, for a coach and a program than Pittman at Arkansas.
Yeah, and
I certainly agree.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say yesterday when Kentucky coach Mark Stoops was up on the podium in the main room for media days, I asked a question, and I said, I got to, because it's just how I see it. I said, do you feel like Kentucky football is making the progress that the fans get as angry about losing a football game as they do a basketball game? And I tell you one thing. That's why when people ask me, what kind of record do you think Auburn's going to have? I'm like, tell me the ones they're going to lose so I don't go, because I expect them to win them all. If you don't have that mentality, and I had a friend from high school that played on Holtz's first team. He was a starting center. And one of the things that my friend Pete Cordelli, and y'all know him, Pete said when they got to Notre Dame in '86 with Coach Lou Holtz, Coach Holtz said, I don't see enough guys in this locker room after this loss, that it looks like it bothers them. But I tell you one that I found over in the corner who was sobbing and about to put his head through the wall was a kid from Chicago that was a badass lineman named Chris Zorich. And he was a cornerstone of the 1988 Notre Dame national championship team. If losing's okay with you, I don't want you anywhere near me. That's my person. I just, I want to win every game. I mean, no, that's a diametrically opposing argument that you can make. Fans just never. Well, you hear some fans on shows go, well, Alabama, well, if they don't win the national championship, the season's a disaster. It's a waste. Why don't you go tell that to those players, Mr. Big Talker? But
you get the strength to raise those four fingers for a fourth quarter working out in an August heat.
Yeah.
That's when that comes in.
Yeah,
You're exactly right.
And I remember,
you got to want it.
Yeah. And Jimmy, you know this, and playing college football, and just whatever you do. And Dudley, God, you know it too. You were, over there in Newport, Arkansas, playing every sport there was and into college. But that the coaches will tell you after a big win, say, this is why we push you so hard in January and February and in the spring and in the summer, and push you beyond what you thought you could do, and push you farther than you ever dreamed of. And you don't let other people tell you what you're capable of. You dig inside yourself. You do a gut check every day. Lay it on the line again and again and again. I mean, that's what sports are all about. That's why what Sam Pittman does for Arkansas is he evokes the passions of people all over that state. And God, I love that state.
Agreed.
I'm over there a lot. And I'm telling you, Frank, Jimmy, y'all ought to come up on the Spring River sometime with me and go trout fishing. It's just a it's got everything, Dudley. You know that. You live there. But I think Sam Pittman, you know why I think he's so popular? Because he got the job. I know he knew about the money and all, but that wasn't the issue. He wanted the job, He's like, and I know he's making a lot of money, but he loves Arkansas, and the people of Arkansas love him. And they're going to win every game. There are going to be times when they get frustrated, but it's a great partnership.
Well, the
when
fact that
Sam,
he's winning just go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry, Dudley. I wanted to point out that when Sam took that Arkansas job, he was barely making more money than he was as offensive line coach at Georgia, even though he was the highest paid offensive line coach in the country. But still, though, he didn't take that job because it was life-changing money, But by proving himself, now he's making life-changing money.
Across Arkansas.
He was an Oklahoma fan growing up, obviously. Then he became an Arkansas one, while he was living there in Grove, Oklahoma, where he grew up. It's a couple of things. Number one, Rob, 500 points to Gryffindor for you using diametrically opposed. I love words like that.
Today's Wealth word of the day, MJ.
Yeah. So impressive there. And number two, y'all have talked about him being a perfect fit for Arkansas, and I think that's just it. One of the things that he, I think, reiterated yesterday is you don't play for the school, you're playing for the state.
Yeah.
And people eat that stuff up, because there are a lot of, proud Arkansans, as he says, that have suffered through some, bad football seasons. And let's be honest, many times, and maybe not in many states as we would think, but in Arkansas, if your football team's doing better, then you certainly feel better about yourself when you get up. That's how it was when I was growing up in this state, and it's how it is these days. As a journalist now, and I go into games. I don't care whether they win or lose. I mean, that's the journalistic, ethical thing you have to say. But I will say that I was running out of ways to write stories, the narrative of them losing, and it's at least been fun as a professional to have some different things to write about than how they lost football games. I kept saying, toward the end, they would always find something to make it happen to lose when they had a chance to win.
Well, he cemented himself permanently in Arkansas lore with his post-game locker room speech to his team after they just manhandled Texas.
Oh, yeah.
By saying the next morning when our fan base gets up, no matter whether they're going to church to get ready that morning or they're going to the Waffle House or whatever they do, every Arkansas fan in this state is going to wake up being proud of being an Arkansas Razorback.
That fried chicken is just going to taste a little better.
Oh, yeah. And those ribs and brisket and whatever you have for a Sunday dinner.
Craig's barbecue.
It will be remembered forever.
That's right.
Dudley, I'm with, and when he said he's on our intro that we do for our show that we do on the Saturdays on Fox 98.3 FM in Alabama. He says, proud of the damn Arkansas Razorbacks, one proud state. And that's what he's tapped into, Dudley. And also, I'm over in Wynn a lot, and I'm up in the borough a lot, Jonesboro, that is. Mallory calls it the borough. But, man, there's some good – there's not as many players, but they play some damn good football in that state, Dudley. Let's talk about your world tour of every high school in the state of Arkansas that plays football. You're going there, and you're going to write about it. That is dedication. It's true grit journalism, and that's what you expect from the captain of the Newport, Arkansas football team. I would expect nothing less.
I mean, it's fun. I mean, I got to be honest with you. Y'all know, I mean, certainly you do, Rob, that back in the day, Texas high school football, Dave Campbell's Texas Football was the magazine that we all waited for because it had stuff about the schools in Arkansas. And now Chad Hooten and his brother Chris have over the years come along with Hooten's Arkansas Football. It got in stores yesterday, so I've been poring over all the high school data that they have, and then since the baseball season got over with the postseason run Arkansas had, and I've been putting out stories on a bunch of these schools and really enjoying getting back into it. As I've said on the show a couple times, I love college football. I love NFL football, but mostly I love the pureness of high school football and the communities here in the state that really come together on a Friday night. You could have stolen anything you wanted in Newport, Arkansas on a Friday night from 7 o'clock on to 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock, because everybody was at the game. And, the only thing is even the people who would steal stuff were at the game as well. So you at least had it effort. But I love that atmosphere. I'm looking forward to Friday nights being at different places this year and not necessarily being there because there's a recruit that Arkansas as playing, which is what I've been doing, but just for the pure love of the game and watching these guys who make a play that will be in forever lore and end up in a country song, they play on Saturdays, during the college football season because of what they did during their high school career.
Yeah, well, Dudley, and that's the funny thing. Like what's always fun is on Thanksgiving weekend, go over to Max Prairie Wings in Stuttgart and duck hunters. It's opening weekend. Well, and it's the second weekend of duck season, but the duck calling contest and everything. People from all over the country, and the only thing that'll pull an Arkansan, a Razorback fan, out of a duck blind or out of green timber early, even if the Ducks are coming in, is if the Razorbacks are playing that damn 11 o'clock game. And whoever came up with the 11 a.m. game, shame on them, man. I mean, hey, there are a lot of mornings to do the show. I go duck hunt early in the morning, and at 7:35, I run back to the truck in my waders with my gear and run back to get there by 8 a.m. But you know what? The cool thing about you, Dudley, is you are a professional journalist, and you're right, but you tell the stories of the people of Arkansas. As we're about to run out of time, and I hate that, but you're so good to have on here because you're real. Arkansas fans got a lot of questions right now about this team. I want to ask you, KJ Jefferson. There's a lot different about him this year, but again, one interception, I think, in the last 257 passes. I think he's the key to this team. He's a very smart, proficient quarterback, isn't he?
Yeah, and he is somebody that, I've been watching, I guess, a couple of years before he came up here and really enjoyed talking to Carl Diffie, his head coach there at Panola. It's Sardis, Mississippi, that, was able to help develop him. This was a kid who was not going to be a quarterback in the ninth grade, and he wanted to give it a shot. And I'd say it turned out pretty well for him. He's got a chance to be a high draft pick next year. He signed a deal yesterday with a bank that is his opening here in town. He'll be able to put all his money in there after the draft next year, I'm sure. I'm looking to sign an NIL deal with a bank, but nobody's come forward yet. So we'll see.
Hey, look, we're waiting. Dudley, listen, you do a lot of great writing, coverage, and all. And again, we're going to, as we go into football season, we'll obviously be talking about the Razorbacks, but we'll let people know every week when you're on where are you going to be Friday night, and make sure people give you a warm welcome. I know you're loved in the natural state, that's for sure. 35 plus years, you put your heart and soul into everything you do. How can people follow you?
At hogbill.net, which is as they say, the most popular message board and sports site here in Arkansas right now. I'm happy to be a part of it with Lanny Beavers, the owner, and a lot of great people I work with. And also fearlessfriday.com is the high school site that I'm beginning to pump the stories out, and I'm going to revitalize that thing and make it one-stop shopping for high school coaches, players, and fans.
Hey, listen, I know we got great folks like sponsors in Cherry Valley, Chad House, ECS Industries, Rusty Howard, Justin Wynn, the great folks at Red River Ford Toyota and Wynn, great sponsors of this show as well. But Dudley, again, as always, thank you for taking time out of your Thursday morning to join us on Sidelines. We deeply appreciate it. And if you can ask us for our help, we're ready to do it. Okay, but we'll talk to you next week.
You bet. As the young kids say, peace out.
Okay, that's right. All right. Hey, let's take a quick break, guys. That podcast music will be on during the hold, so please don't hang up. We'll be right back with Gary Harris, WVUA TV 23 and Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa, home of the May Veterinary Clinic, after this quick message.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you, and an excellent segment, as always, by Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. And now we're joined by another great one, True Grit journalist, broadcaster, television, WVUA TV 23 and Tide 100.9 every morning. He's on 9 to 11 a.m. In Tuscaloosa and all over. Gary Harris joins Jimmy Hodge, Frank Duffy, and Rob Brown. We're here in Atlanta, SEC Media Days. It isn't a circus. It's organized, and it's a logistical masterpiece. Again, thanks to Kimberly Bowden, the CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, who was a guest on Sidelines yesterday, and the people from the Southeastern Conference, Herb Vincent, Chuck Dunlap, Mark Womack, obviously Commissioner Greg Sankey, just dedicated people, and all the interns. My goodness, there's so many people involved in making this happen. Yesterday, or actually Tuesday, Nick Saban was up on the podium. The days are all blurring together, kind of like the last few years of the virus, but we're fighting our way out of it, and we'll talk some college football. What was your takeaway, Gary, from so far everything in Media Days, but specifically Coach Nick Saban, the pride of West Virginia?
All right, starting with Coach Saban, I thought that, as always, he handles himself like the pro that he is. And, I think that the message this year at SEC Media Days, I think didn't change much from what he has been saying. I thought his approach changed a little. I thought his demeanor this year, I thought he was a little bit more restrained and low key. And it was clear to me that, I guess, on the heels of what he had said in Birmingham a couple of months ago that stirred up the hornet's nest with Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher, I thought, Rob, that he was going to stay on point, but also not allow any side of his personality outside of a measured and uncontrolled to come out. Not that he ever, even I've said this before, even when he's having one of the so-called rants, I still think he's fully aware of what he's saying and who he's saying it to. I never thought, we use the term rant, but rant to me always signifies, you're out of control. Like you see somebody in a road rage incident, and they're in somebody's face, they're ranting, and I've never taken Saban for that, but he has been colorful and he has been animated, and he certainly has been at times, I think dismissive of people that have asked him questions. He was not going to let that happen on Tuesday, regardless of the question. He stayed in character, so to speak, low key, resolute, and the mission and the statement remained the same in regards to NIL and expansion and all the things that we're dealing with. But the major thing I took away, Rob, at the end of the day, without him coming out and just saying it, but, having listened to him for 15 years and paid attention to everything that he says, was that I'm still here. I feel good. I love coaching college football. I'm excited to be back for another season. And regardless of what happens, and regardless of the changes that have already occurred, are occurring, and will occur in the future, I'm running the best program in college football.
Alabama's the best program. We have more to offer than anybody else. We can help student athletes reach all of their goals on and off the field. That's who we are. That's who we've been, and that's who we're going to be. And I just that was the message that I took away from Nick Saban, just basically reaffirming everything that this program is and that he wants it to continue to be now and in the future.
He looked like the professional poker player sitting at the table, not showing what his cards were, and he had a huge stack of chips right in front of him. That's what he's got this season.
Yeah, I think so. I really do. I think it's a great analogy. I think, he's at the, the Texas Hold'em table, and he's the guy with the big chip pile, and everybody else is just hanging on, hoping to catch a card that can pull them out of their mire. And he knows that if he just stays, like you said, if he just stays cool and he just plays his hands correctly, he's going to come out on top. Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. And I think that's the way he feels. I think he knows that he's got a great football team potentially in 2022. And I think he understands, too, that last year, even though, I don't think that was one of his better teams. I don't think it was one of his better teams on paper. I don't think it was one of his better teams during the season. And I don't think it turned out to be one of his better teams. But still, they were, player or two away from winning another national championship. As I've told, Rob and Jimmy before, that season that Alabama had last year, you guys know a lot of places, they're doing, paintings and having parades for that type of season. To win the Southeastern Conference championship and to play for a national championship at a lot of places, that's a cause for celebration. At Alabama, it was cause for disappointment. And I think that he understands now with what he has coming back, he has executed his philosophy in the transfer portal beautifully. I mean, absolutely beautifully, and that we're not going to, build our team off the transfer portal, but we are going to cherry pick it. And we're going to bring in guys that make us better immediately. He said when this portal was approved, he said, you know what, we're not going to lose our best players, but we are going to take some other people's best players. And guys, that's exactly what's happened. So again, I think you're right. I think he's the pool player there in Las Vegas. I mean, the poker player there in Las Vegas after, a 24-hour marathon session. He's got the other 2 or 3 guys that are hanging in there. They're just barely alive. He's sitting there stacked up with chips in reserve, knowing that he's in the catbird seat. And I think that's the way it came across. I mean, you have to earn it. Nobody gives you anything, but I think he feels really good about where the program's at, where this year's team is at, and the potential for this season to be one that, could be special.
Yeah. And it's not that they don't appreciate that they got to the national championship game, but that standard is really high, and Jimmy, it, and Frank and Gary, you have that standard like that. It's not easier, but it really doesn't rattle your cage, the pressure that is all around you, because you expect, because if you've trained for it and that process prepares them, you're going to be in every fight for the full 60. And look at the record: 178 wins, 25 losses in 15 years. And I think 8 SEC championships. They've won the SEC West 11 times. And 6 national championships. That's pretty good, Jimmy.
It's the norm, Rob.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
It's the norm. It's what it has become, just, again, what the program is. So the freshmen from last year, they already have been through the gauntlet. Players pass along their knowledge, and even the guys that come in from the transfer portal, they're new to the program, but they're not new to college football, and many of them have played against Alabama. And even the ones that haven't, they've watched the program, and when they come in, they're quickly, there's a indoctrination. They're indoctrinated quickly into what Alabama football is all about. So you're right. Where other programs are trying to get to this level, and sometimes when they're having one of those really good years, they're going through things they've never gone through. How to handle pressure of a stretch run when you're in contention for a conference championship. All the different things that go with that. In Alabama, it's just, it's every year. So I do think it gives you an advantage. You know what to expect. You understand the pressure. You understand, like you said, Rob, it really isn't pressure anymore. It's just the norm when it's November. And even before that, everybody's gunning for you. When Alabama goes out there on Saturday, we saw it with Texas A&M last season. And listen, Texas A&M deserves that moment. I don't want to take anything away from Texas A&M. It wouldn't have mattered if it had been another team. But whenever you beat Alabama, it is a different kind of victory for your program. That's a fact. That is a fact. A&M went 8-4 last year, but their fan base was so energized by that win over Alabama and what it could mean in the future that, they're jacked up for this year. We've seen, and even with Georgia, it was a national championship. That's the first time they beat Alabama in years. And it's the first time Kirby Smart had ever beaten Alabama. So not only was it for the national championship, you slayed the giant in the process. So that just goes with playing at Alabama, and they're used to it. It's a long-standing tradition that goes back long before Nick Saban. But there's no doubt when Nick Saban got there, that wasn't where the program was at that time. And he had to bring that in, and he had to teach that. And because he's a great coach and because Alabama has a great history and it's important, football's important to a lot of people in Alabama, he was able to turn it around probably much quicker at Alabama than he could have at some other programs. Although, let's be clear, you give Nick Saban the resources, there's a lot of programs he can win at. We know that. But it's been a perfect marriage at Alabama. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Jimmy?
Add to what you said, Gary, about Saban's appearance at SEC Media Days. You could tell this is a team that he likes. This is a team that he and his staff are looking forward to coaching. That was in vast contrast to last year. You could tell at various times how hard it was. In a lot of cases, get through to this team, and that every Saturday you just never knew what you were going to get. Nobody expected LSU to take Alabama down the wire, and they just had several uneven performances. And with all that being said, and the obvious problems they had in the offensive line, they were 2 injuries away from winning the national championship. And even as it was, losing both of their top receivers and playing the last 3 quarters of the championship game without 175 total receptions in the lineup and 2,000 receiving yards in the lineup, it went down to the very end. I mean, they were down by 8 points with 1.5 minutes left in the game. It was a remarkable coaching job, but you could just tell that he knows this is going to be an outstanding team, and barring injury, they're going to be the team to beat for the national championship. But at the same time, as you mentioned with the transfer portal, he made some moves to make sure that if that injury situation at a certain position takes place, he's going to have some players that can come in and fill the gaps. You're not going to be stuck with inexperienced freshman receivers, that are in a very difficult situation to encounter. But I thought it was very interesting. I want to get your thoughts on this, Gary, when he specifically mentioned his new offensive line coach from Kentucky by name and the work he had done during spring practice. And he let it known between the lines. A lot of people maybe that weren't listening that closely might not have noticed, but he was not happy with how his offensive line was coached last year or their development during the season.
Yeah, Jimmy, you said a lot there that I want to talk about, before I get to Eric Wofford specifically. But you're right on about last year, and and that's what I alluded to. That team still came within a few plays, and nobody has given Georgia more credit than I have. They earned it. They got their second opportunity after, getting run pretty good there in Atlanta in the SEC championship game. They took advantage of it, and they made the plays in the fourth quarter. So that's it is what it is. You never have to apologize for winning a national championship. They're the national champion. But to think, again, that's football. You play with who you have. But to think that John Mechie and Jameson Williams wouldn't have made a difference in that game is foolish. And to think that Alabama playing without its, starting 2 quarterbacks wouldn't have made a difference is foolish. Would they have won the game, Alabama? I think they would have. But they didn't have those guys. And they still had a chance to make plays. Jai Hall drops a ball that hits him right in the hands at the 5-yard line, that if he catches that football, I think Alabama wins the game. But he didn't. And, he had his issues, and that's why he's somewhere else now. But you're absolutely right. I think Nick Saban's looking forward to coaching his team because as badly as he wants to win a national championship every year, for him and the process, which he continues to implement and preach here in Tuscaloosa, I do think he always is more excited as far as that next year's team to coach a team that came up a little short. I'm not saying that he would have loved to have won the national championship last year. Don't get me wrong here. All right. But because they came up short, he loves the opportunity to not waste a failure. You've heard him say it before. I think he feels like it's easier to coach a team that didn't quite get to the pinnacle. And you're seeing that with Kirby Smart this year, who certainly learned the process from Nick Saban. And all he did yesterday was spend 45 minutes basically talking about how, they're not taking anything for granted, and they're not complacent. And they are the hunter and not the hunted. He's trying to do the same thing that he learned from Nick Saban, and that is battle against complacency. Because when you work so hard to reach a goal and you reach it, there's a feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment, and nobody can ever take that away from you. That sometimes players that accomplish that come back the next year and they don't have that same drive and determination. Kirby even referenced his first year at LSU. He joined LSU the year after they won the national championship, and he said this yesterday. That team was loaded. Should have been able to make a run at another national championship. But a lot of those guys had won their championship. They had their rings. They knew they were going to be first-round draft picks, and they didn't quite have what they'd had, evidently the season before to get the job done. So I think Saban's thrilled and excited to have this many football players that are talented and have a roster this deep that experienced the failure and can build around it. Now the offensive line coach. Yeah, I think they're extremely, extremely excited about Eric Wolford. Now I'm going to say this. I got to be around Doug McMurray just a little bit, and I like the guy. And, his resume speaks for itself. He's been a head coach in the National Football League. He's been a long-time offensive line coach in the National Football League, so I don't want to disparage Doug Marrone at all. But sometimes, the fit isn't as well at one place as it is somewhere else. He went back to the NFL, and Eric Wolford comes in here as a guy who I thought, did a marvelous job in Kentucky last year, an absolute marvelous job. He's done a good job everywhere he's been. He is a relentless recruiter, and there is no doubt going through one spring at Alabama with Eric Wolford as offensive line coach, I think these offensive linemen are excited about playing for him. I think Nick Saban is excited about having him on the staff. And I've said this before. I know there are a couple of holes there on the offensive line in terms of spots that have to be filled. But with the way they've recruited here and the number of guys they've got on that roster at the offensive line positions that are, I mean, top tier talent-wise, plus the experience they have coming back, plus Ekiyor was banged up at the end of the year. Dalcourt couldn't play. I'm trusting Wolford, guys, to find 5 offensive linemen, whatever that combination is. And Tyler Steen coming in, graduate transfer from Vanderbilt. I'm expecting him to find 5 offensive linemen that he puts out there that are on par with any in the country. I don't think the offensive line is going to be an issue long-term this year for this team.
Gary, you put it, you and Jimmy just both put it in the vernacular as well as I've heard it. And it's, Jimmy was right. Last year, Nick Saban, you could tell he was frustrated with that team. Frank, looking at it from a distance, you're an LSU guy, but again, you're like a Swiss Army knife. You can cover all the teams. Frank, how are you going to attack this Alabama team? Where are the potential weaknesses, if there are any? And that's a relative term when I say weakness, because it's kind of like saying you've got the oldest Rolls Royce at the Beverly Hills Country Club. It's still a Rolls Royce.
Flatten the tires of the buses before they leave Tuscaloosa.
There you go.
By the way, Rob, I've been a contributor to your show since I had that debate with Phyllis before the LSU Alabama game in 2019.
That was awesome.
I mentioned to you comically, I felt like I actually showed up at a knife fight with a gun that year. Well, I'm looking around. I don't see a gun. I don't see a knife. I don't see nunchucks. I don't see anything. I think Alabama is loaded this year. To Gary's point, I think it's going to be just like the year when they lost in that last-second play to Clemson. I think Nick just forges that when something like that happens. He comes back the next year. I'd like to ask Gary what he thinks about the addition to Jahmyr Gibbs. If you're right and that offensive line does come back together to the standards of Alabama football, what is bringing in a dynamic former Georgia Tech running back who's now going to have all the tools around him, all the support around him. I heard he's been incredible in spring performance. What do you see for him and my old cornerback Ricks coming in from the transfer portal? What do you see those types of additions now that Nick said, "Hey, I don't want to play this game, but if you force me to play this game, I can play it better than you guys can."
Game changers, both of them, and I don't think there's any doubt about it. I'm confident in saying that they're going to be two of the best players at their positions in the country, and I think the track record. Again, these aren't kids coming out of high school. You know, the 1 year that Elias Ricks played at LSU, you saw the talent, you saw what he's capable of. You see the length. We saw it here this spring. We saw it in the 8A game. Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy out of Dalton, Georgia, that Alabama recruited out of high school, quite frankly. And I think that there was some regret here then that maybe they did not pursue him. They recruited him, but I don't know that they pursued him quite as hard as they wish they had pursued him once he got to Georgia Tech and they saw the kind of player he is. So when he went in the portal, I don't think there was any doubt here that Nick Saban told this coaching staff, this is a guy we want. And the same thing with Eli Ricks. I think when he went into the portal, having seen him at LSU, knowing how hard it is, no matter how many high school guys you bring in, that cornerback position is a tough one to play at this level. And you've got a guy who already proved that he was a freshman All-American caliber player. So you add those two players, not to mention the two wide receivers, Burton and Harrell, but Ricks and Gibbs, specifically game changers. I mean, as I said, I think you're talking about two guys that will play out during the course of the season to be two of the best players at their positions in the country. And then you add in the other backs that they've got here. This isn't just Gibbs. I mean, Chase McClellan's coming back. Chase McClellan is a talented player. Had he doesn't go down last year, I think that's a game changer for Alabama. Roy Dale Williams, they still got Trey Sanders. They got a talented freshman coming in, and they got a lot of young, talented cornerbacks as well. Those two guys, I think, are not only going to be great players. I think they've already established, and I know Rick's had his little off-the-field issue driving in Mississippi, but he's going to get past that, and I think that they're going to make this football team even better than it was already going to be. The same thing with the transfers they've had the first couple of years in the portal. It's just been, again, Saban has played it beautifully, and he did it again this year. And those two guys they're difference makers, man. I'm telling you, particularly, Rich is going to be a difference maker, but because it's on offense, he's going to touch the ball in so many different ways. I'm telling you now, this Gibbs kid, every time he touches it, as you pointed out, with people around him, he's a threat to take it the distance.
Yeah. And Ricks, I will tell you, I think he is as talented as Stingley was. When they were playing on both corners, I mean, it was pick your poison. He had that type of talent. So I think before his college career is up, I think he could go as high as Stingley did in the draft. Well, all I got is four more words as an LSU fan. Damn you, Wayne Huizenga. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, I got to run too. I enjoyed it as always. And let me say something real quick, Rob, before I go. When I was coming in to the studio here in Tuscaloosa, and then even after I got in before I called you guys, I was listening to Brian Harsin. Just real quick thought, and I'm going to play some of it on my show.
Yeah.
I know what he went through, but I don't know if he worked with a PR firm or I'm telling you, man, that sounded like a different dude to me.
Yeah.
Not defensive, not adversarial. I mean, he sounded like, I was impressed. I'm just going to tell you that. You got to go out and do it on the field. But I was impressed with what I heard from Brian Harsin. Hey, I got to go. Thanks, guys.
Gary, thank you so much. You're a pro and appreciate that. And Gary Harris, WVUA TV 23, does a great show, especially every Tuesday night with our good friend Rodney Orr of Tider Insider. Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m. Central. Also a daily show Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. And I got to say, I agree with him about Brian Harsin. I think Brian Harsin, we asked Jason Caldwell, if you were a consultant and they brought you in, how could you get Brian Harsin's image improved? And Jason was right. Open up 4 or 5 practices. Get out there among the people. I suggested he go out and tailgate with people and just, lighten up. But I think he's a football guy. He's serious. He's a tough, hard ass. He's going to reinstitute an alpha male culture at Auburn. And I think people are going to be surprised. A lot of people are picking out, flowers and what suit to bury Auburn in. Don't do that. We'll come back, talk about it. But Bill Hancock, executive director of the College Football Playoff, is on deck, going to join us after this break for hour number 2 on Sidelines on this Thursday morning, July 21st, 2022. Let's say thanks to great sponsors we have. We're so blessed to have, like Gateway Tire and Service Centers. We go the distance for our customers in the communities where we do business. Support the Boy Scouts and Reforest, Mississippi. How about that? We'll be back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
I'm back here with you. Hour number 2.
Please record
Sidelines.
When you have finished recording, you may hang up.
A lot of fun. Let's do this. A lot of fun in that first hour. I'm telling you right now, talking and, some of the best of college football. We had, Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net on with us in the first hour. And then we were joined by Gary Harris, Tide 100.9. And just a moment, we're going to be joined again by Bill Hancock, one of the more visible faces in college football as executive director of the College Football Playoff. Bill Hancock has been on the scene for a while in college athletics. I mean, hell, he started out back in early 70s as sports information director at Oklahoma and lives out in, I guess, Fort Worth. And, hey, he gets a lot of requests. And let me just say that we are beyond fortunate to have him join us. And I know, guys, there's so many questions. Where do you go with the college football playoff? And we'll get to that in just a second. But great questions, guys. With Gary Harris, Gary really knows what he's talking about. And again, he closed out those comments about Brian Harsin. I just think Harson's more comfortable. I mean, when you go anywhere, it's like a foreign country to go from Boise, Idaho to Auburn, Alabama. Frank and Jimmy,
changing high school. I mean, remember how hard that was? No, absolutely. Now Harson's going to be fine. I'm telling you. I think Auburn's going to be the surprise of the season. I really do.
Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised at all if Auburn is not one of the better teams around. They have 8th or 9th most talent on their roster still. If you look at the Blue Chip Index, which is it's every 4 years, it's a cycle of the number of 4- and 5-star players that you have on your roster. But it's just reinstituting the toughness. And when we talk about toughness and we talk about building a culture in college football, you got to start with who has built that culture of college football. Hell, my dad's 94, my mom's 87. They watch every Auburn game. My dad watches everything on college football that he can. He remembers games that were played in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 50s. And you know what? That stuff matters. Everything that everyone before us has ever done matters. And I'm honored to have Executive Director of the College Football Playoff, Bill Hancock, on the line with us, and with Jimmy Hodge, Frank Duffy, and all of our listeners everywhere. Again, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us, and welcome aboard.
Well, thank you for having me on. How you doing today?
Good. Running around like a one-legged man in the kick fight here at SEC Media Days. But
Well, I was going to say, long time no see.
yeah, it's nice to meet you the other day. I know you just going up and down, and everybody wants to talk to you. But we've watched college football, and and we lost a mentor, David Housel and Buddy Davidson. When I was in high school, used to let me work up in the press box at Auburn, sports information director at Auburn. And you did that at Oklahoma to get your start. And tell us about your journey to get where you are now, because you've got such a wealth of knowledge and relationships that you've built up over your lifetime in college athletics. And here we are now. You're at the tip of the spear with the college football playoff.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear about Buddy, of course, and Buddy and David. If you think about the number of people they touched in their careers, just remarkable influence on the world. Both those guys.
Oh yeah.
I haven't talked to David in 3 or 4 months, I guess, and.
You have reached the maximum time permitted for recording your message. If you are satisfied with your message, press 1. To listen to your message, press 2. To erase and re-record.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yep, Mr. Hancock.
Did I lose you there?
No, we're back. We just had a little bit of a technical issue there, but you're right about all the people that you're talking about having an influence, and like you say, David Housel and other people that have worked in sports information and like what you did. But I know one thing, you couldn't put anything in the Auburn Plainsman or in sports information office until it was right. Not trying to get it first, but trying to get it right. But they're tremendous influences.
That is so true. That is so true. And I'm lucky enough to have come up through that part of athletics, as you mentioned, and with great mentors and friends. And I count David Housel right up at the top of that.
Yeah. Let's talk about, now here where we are, college football. We remember back in the 1950s when television, they started showing football on TV. People worried, well, it'll hurt attendance. People won't go to games. 1984, Oklahoma and Georgia sued Chuck Ninus, the College Football Association, the right to get more games on. Every stadium in America has expanded multiple times, some of them 4 or 5 or 6 times. You think about states like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State with T. Boone Pickens and the Sooners, what's happened there, and in Texas, the passion, the enthusiasm, it's everywhere. And the playoff, it's a new thing, but where, this is a question that Reese Davis said on game day, maybe it was last year, about, keeping interest up for fans in the Deep South late in the season, about how they're going to still be interested in an Oregon game or games in other parts of the country. And as the playoff has come along, you've had 13 teams out of 130 make it in the first 8 years. That's 10%. But no matter what anybody says, there's nothing like a national championship. And every Saturday, every game, it matters. And that's what keeps us so excited and on the edge of our seats. So just kind of get your thoughts about where we can take this. And I know there's a lot that's happening, but we're ready to hear from you. I've been talking too much.
Well, we have the most meaningful regular season in sports, and the regular season of college football is the best thing we have going for us in college athletics.
Yeah,
and frankly, the most important thing. So we certainly don't want the postseason to ever do anything that would take away from the regular season. And I think we've been very careful and very incremental in our changes in the postseason, very thoughtful, which is good. And I hope that will continue in the future. We don't need any kind of knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah, and that's, 4 teams, 8 teams, 12 teams. How many is enough? But I think what I like is the fact that you've been around. You've been there. The last 50 years, what we've seen happen in college football is just an explosion. I mean, you look at attendance in the late 70s and the early 80s compared to what it is now, and even fighting through the virus and the pandemic, it's amazing. And we college football one player, one play, one coach comes in, it gives an entire fan base, a state, it gives them hope. And it's what we grow up watching on TV. Our theme of Sidelines, Mr. Hancock, has always been history, tradition, and heroes. And I think Haywood Harris, remember him at Tennessee, the SID, said one thing about tradition never graduates. And that, every year college football, it's like the dawn of spring after a tough winter. Everybody's undefeated right now. That's what I love about this game.
Well, and that's the great thing about this week and these 3 weeks, conference media days. It's like spring training. Everybody's undefeated. Everybody's optimistic about what's ahead. This is a great time of year. Being around coaches again, seeing media people. For me, it's a big old family reunion.
It is, no doubt about it. Frank, jump in here. Let's see here. Whoops. Okay. Well, Jimmy, are you on with us? Okay. I think I'm trying to see where everybody went. But anyway,
hey, we're going to have to carry this. You and me, we can do it.
Yeah. We've got some storms right now that are really severe here in Atlanta. But when you look out there and you start looking around at what is happening with college football and the growth, the playoff in November, if you've got a 12-team playoff, I'm just looking out way ahead. If you've got a 12-team playoff, and theoretically, most of the teams in the top 25 could say, "Hey, we've got a chance to make the playoff." We watch what happened in college basketball as the NCAA tournament has grown, and it captivates an entire nation. And when I watch what happened, if you're a Kentucky fan, you weren't real happy about it. But what St. Peter did in basketball this past year is an example. Here's my concern. I'm an Auburn graduate in the interest of full disclosure, but I'm an SEC guy, but I love college football all over the country. And you are lucky. You get to travel everywhere. Sometimes people are mad, they may have some questions for you, but you're trying. And again, you're the tip of the spear for college football, and we thank you for that. But you want to keep interest all over the country. Like Jimmy Hodge says, where football is big, it's really big. And I think, again, the fact that there's always that discussion about growing the playoff, I think that even fuels more interest. Frank Duffy jumping here with Executive Director of the College Football Playoff, Mr. Bill Hancock. We've got some really severe storms here in Atlanta, so we get through this next 40 or 51 minutes. I'm going to be very happy. Thank you, God. But Frank, join us.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to me. I think both Jimmy and I got both knocked off. Well, Bill, thank you for being with us. Obviously, this is a great interview. And all college football fans to be able to speak with you. And I wanted to ask you and bring up the discussion or the debate of whether we should go to more teams for the playoff. And obviously, money is driving that and fan interest around the country. And I think a lot of us would love that, to see a 8-team or 12-team playoff. And the argument against always, well, you don't want to water down the regular season. The individual games, the 12 individual games that teams play, that would somehow lessen it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. It seems to me, though, if you had more teams in play for the playoff as the end of the year approached, you would actually have more interest in more games by more people. And so it wouldn't water down each of those games. It would actually make some games that would have no longer an impact be more impactful to more people. What is your thoughts on that as far as that argument?
It's a complex question and sounds simple, but it's complex. And I'll just start off with this. Now with a 4-team tournament, there's actually more than 4 teams in contention, obviously. The conference championship games, in many cases, have become play-in games. And that's great. But I do think with a larger field, that obviously more teams will be in contention in November. And I think we would help ourselves in November with a larger field. Now, we also have to remember that September is important. And right now, September is tremendously important. There will be games that will be played in the first 2 weeks that the selection committee will be talking about on the first weekend and first Sunday in December when they do the final rankings. So we need to make sure we're keeping September relevant as well as November. I think that will be the case if we can keep our emphasis on strength of schedule and keep a certain number of at-large teams in the hunt, in the bracket. And that will let us rely on strength of schedule. So you can't consider the postseason all alone. You have to consider the postseason and the regular season together.
You know, the bottom line is when you look at what happens, it's so fluid during the college football season. Bill Hancock, if you would hold for just a moment, we've got one of our sponsors on the line with us who's making all this possible, and always got to have that and always be blessed to have sponsors like our good friends at American Cast Iron Pipe Company in Birmingham. Maury, I got to say many thanks for sponsoring our program this week. You've been with American Cast Iron Pipe for 40 years, same amount of time you and I have known each other. You've engineered and sold iron and steel pipelines all across the country. What's been your most interesting project? We're all listening because, hey, think about it. Without you, we don't drink.
Well, thank you, Rob. This has been fun and informative this week. I'm really glad we were able to do it. There have been many projects all across the country, but the most unique and interesting one is an underwater pipeline across Campbell Lake in Anchorage, Alaska. I was stationed in Sacramento at the time, and Alaska was part of my territory. I assisted with that project and sold it in 1989. And then 29 years later, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake shook that pipeline loose, and it floated to the surface. It was trapped beneath 16 inches of ice and was discovered 104 days later when the ice had melted and it poked through like an emerging submarine. Remarkably, and due to the resilience and performance of iron pipe and iron pipe joints, those joints were grossly deflected. When I saw the photographs, it reminded me of Joe Theismann's leg as he laid on the field after his broken leg. But those joints never separated. It was soon restored to original condition and is a remarkable testimony to toughness and performance and resilience of iron pipe.
All right, there's got to be more to this story, Maury.
Well, there is. You can't cover something like that in a 2-minute spot here. You could learn and hear more about it. I did an interview about this project in a paper at a conference. You can go to our website, american-usa.com, and click on our news page. And if you'll put Campbell Lake in the search box, you'll see a 6-minute audio story about that with photographs. It's really, really a fascinating picture, a story, not just for those in the pipe industry, but the general public as well.
Maury, how can our fans follow you and your company?
Well, sure, Rob. Thanks. We're on Twitter, News@American, and that's News@AT American. We're also on LinkedIn, of course, American Cast Iron Pipe, and I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn, Maury B. Gaston, for both of those.
Hey, man, we've all learned a lot about iron and steel pipe this week. Those are cool stories. And Maury, they are as tough as the meanest and strongest linemen in the Southeastern Conference. So thanks a lot for sharing this with us. We are so grateful for your support of Sidelines during SEC Media's week. Thanks. Thank you a million times over.
You betcha, Rob. Thanks to you and Jimmy and Audrey. It's been a real pleasure.
All right, let's do it again. We'll talk to you. And Maury, be careful out there. We got rain here in Atlanta. And Bill Hancock, Executive Director of the College Football Playoff, is on with us. And I think Jimmy may have been eaten up by the rain and technology. But Frank, jump back in here with us with Bill Hancock. This is great stuff. And again, we really appreciate you taking time to join us and putting up. It's just we're dodging rain over here and storms and lightning bolts and ready to get downstairs to the main media room for college football media days after this show. But we've got the tip of the spear for the college playoff on with us right now.
Well, I don't think we've ever had a more influential guest for sure. And I know Jimmy's going to be sorry that he missed this. Mr. Hancock, can I ask you this? What is the feel of that committee room when you guys meet on that weekly basis? You know, can you paint a picture for us of what goes on behind that door when the discussions are being made and teams are being vetted out? You know, it's just a fascinating thought. You know, the power brokers that are behind that mahogany door, if you will. Can you just give us a glimpse of what those meetings are like?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. But I wanted to ask Marius some questions about that project. You cut him off too soon, Rob. I wanted to know more.
Yeah, that's cool stuff. Listen, man, they're one of our sponsors for making this all possible for Media Days. But it is incredible. I mean, I had never heard a story like that buried under 16 inches of ice. It looks like finding the Yeti, up on the Himalayas.
Let me say something. As a history buff, they have the 10 top reasons why we won World War II. And let me tell you, if it wouldn't have been for those iron and steel foundries that we were cranking out during the 40s, we'd have a different future right now. There's no doubt. It's amazing what that industry did for our country during World War II.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, darn it. I guess we have to go back to football.
Yeah. We'll do it. Mr. Hancock, again, you were going to. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead with Frank's question. I know you were trying to answer that. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to talk about committee room. Really, the highlight of my career has been the years that I've gotten to work with the football selection committee, as well as the 16 years when I was director of the Final Four, getting to work with those committees. Hardworking, high integrity, a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, but mostly serious because they realize what's at stake. And our committee members watch games all season. We don't start meeting until after the 9th week of the season. But when they come to the room on those Monday afternoons to get ready each week, they're very well prepared. And the debates are pointed. I mean, they get after each other, which is what we want. If we just wanted one opinion, we'd have a one-person committee.
Yep.
13 people in there from different backgrounds, and that's for a reason. And it's just fascinating to watch them work and listen to the conversations.
Yeah, it really is.
And obviously, integrity is a must for what your results are. So I'm sure they have their game faces on. They know what's at stake when they're in that meeting room, and the integrity of the game again is on the line.
It is. Of course it is. And we know, well, there'll always be a team 5. And it's team 5, or when I did the tournament, team 65, that your heart goes out to, because you know how hard those young people, the players and the coaches, have worked. You know how meaningful it is to the staff, but you also know that you have a job to do. And you can't make everybody happy. It's not an all-comers meet, as we used to say in track and field. And you just do your best with integrity and uncover every stone to learn everything you can learn about every team. And that's the way our committee operates.
Yeah.
Well, I think the playoff system has been an incredible success coming out of the BCS. I think y'all have done a great job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that so much. I feel the same way. I think we've gotten the right team every year, right 4 teams every year. And it's because of the integrity and because of the fun of the process.
Yeah, Jimmy Hodge, jump back in here with us. I think you have made it through the ice storm.
Well, not really. We had a major weather event last night, and a lot of, I think, maybe cell towers. But I know a tree, not 100 yards from where I'm at, has taken down some mines and made a street unpassable. But hey, I got out and about, so now I've got a signal. But Bill, I've always wanted to ask you this: with all the great things I think the playoff has done, and the more teams that have a chance to be able to participate is going to be a great thing in the future. But I do have one concern as a really serious fan of college football. And I know when I went to the a championship game in 2011 and 2012 when Alabama played LSU and then Notre Dame. My concern is the price of a ticket for the championship game. I mean, it's up to $800 now, base price. And I noticed that for the semifinals, it is considerably lower. And I'm just wondering if that's a point that you guys have discussed or anything like that, because we know the big boosters and all that will certainly be able to go to a game under any circumstances. But for fans in a neutral locale, like, for example, last year, Indianapolis, as opposed to a semifinal game where I guess the base price is around $250. Again, is that a point you guys have even thought about, or is it something? Is there anything that can do that can make it a little bit more affordable for the average guy?
Well, I appreciate you asking about that. It's supply and demand. And the lowest price is lower than $800. I believe it was $425 last year, which is still a lot. And look at all the prices of all the events, our peer events. Final Four prices are up there around where ours are. Super Bowl, of course, is way more. And we want to keep doing everything we can to get to let the average fan have the opportunity to go to the games. But it is basic economics of supply and demand.
Yeah, well, I guess one of my buddies, and he is a booster, but his base price was closer to where I was quoting. So again, it's just again, it's a situation where we talk about the in-stadium experience during the regular season too. So again, what you're saying is reality. I mean, it is a supply and demand situation, but I just did kind of want to bring it up because for a lot of fans that really want to see their team play in a big game, that is kind of an obstacle. But again, overall, though, you guys have done a lot of great work, and I think in many cases you have been successful in getting who the best teams were in that championship game. And even when you only had two teams, I've really been impressed, and I wanted you to chime in on this, how important it is to have former football coaches on the committee, because I really thought in a couple of different years when I saw the final matchup being announced, I just had a sense behind the scenes that those guys really took charge because they know a good football team when they see one, and they know the eye test, and that's also very important. And how big a role have those guys played, in this process when it really got tight and down to the nitty-gritty on who was going to get that last spot?
Well, a significant role. They're the experts, and we certainly listen to them. We listen to everybody in the committee room. The different perspectives are so important. The perspective of the coaches, the perspective of the former players, the perspective of the former media people who are on the committee, who've been on the committee through the years. All important.
Yeah. And Bill Hancock, you're talking about the perspective of those coaches. That is huge. You there?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't want to elevate them above the other members, and I wouldn't do that. And they don't want to be elevated above the other members, but their perspective is important. And just look at the coaches who've been on the committee so far: Tom Osborne, Barry Alvarez, and just to name a couple, Tyrone Willingham, Frank Beamer, Ken Hatfield. And we are adding another coach this year, Jim Grobe. Jim's going to be a great committee member. Yeah. They just know how to evaluate teams.
I've got to ask one question, and this it's I guess we think in simple terms. We always want to go back to this mythical town we've come up with called Simple Town. And Buddy Martin and Franz Beard of Gator Bait, Buddy's going to be the mayor. The paper is going to be a penny a day or $1 for the whole year subscription. But simple math. If a 4-team playoff generates $450 million. Would it be that easy to say a 12-team playoff would generate $1.35 billion? And if you did that, how much of that money goes back down to the smaller schools? Because, again, I'm an Auburn grad. I love Auburn and the SEC, but I want to see football and everything, all the sports all around the country, because they teach the lessons of life. And I'll tell you something else, a compliment to you. Jimmy and I, our friend Rich Johnson, has had his 2 grandsons, the twins, Alex and Fitz. They're Alabama and Florida fans down at the College Hall of Fame every day. And he said, you know what? You stopped by when you were walking out of the main media room in the Hall of Fame lobby a couple of days ago and took a picture with them. And he said, man, that's their new hero, Mr. Bill. So thank you for doing that. That says a lot about the kind of character and what a good man and just you are. And so just people need to hear that about you.
Well, one of my favorite things to do, thank you for that, and I appreciate Alex and Fitz being there. One of my favorite things to do at any of our games is to walk around on the console.
Yeah.
And I'll take off my badge and just walk around and soak it in. And people don't know me. They don't recognize me, which is great. I can just watch people having a good time and remembering why we do what we do.
Hey, Bill, was there a time, though, when you walked around concourses and didn't remove your badge and somebody said, hey, Hancock, how did you screw this up? And then you learn from that, hey, I'm not wearing my badge around anymore. In that situation.
No.
You have to go into your deepest Sergeant Schultz. I know nothing, Hogan.
I see nothing. I do nothing.
Well, and Mr. Hancock, that's great that you do that because it's that connection with the passion for college football that really vibrant for everything that's done in this sport.
Well, and I love the game every bit as much as you guys and all those fans. I love it. I've loved it since I went to my first game when I was about 4 years old. So I wouldn't do this if I didn't love it.
Hopefully in this process, the college football can reclaim December Saturdays from the NFL, because if we do have that playoff structure, keeping the integrity of the bowls as well, but I think those Saturdays on the December would be perfect for playoff football.
They would be. I want to say this too. We work really well with the NFL. We have a strong relationship. Our relationship primarily is on scheduling. And obviously we're playing a lot of our bowl games and camp games in NFL stadiums. And so we have to stay in close contact with them, and we do. And it's a very positive relationship.
Is there a particular time during your career, one moment, one particular game, or just after one season or let's say 6-week period when you were selecting the teams for the playoff or the final 2 teams during the BCS years that, you really had a moment that just made you stand back and just reflect, golly, how lucky I am to be part of this and to be experiencing this from a ringside seat?
How about every day?
I love it.
Good answer.
You're the right man for the job. I can tell you that. I love it.
Good answer.
I have the best job in America. I really do. And to think that I got to do the best event in basketball and now I get to do the best event in football is a dream come true. I have the best job. Well,
that should be the Webster's Dictionary definition for the word.
Yeah, it just makes people think about it, Mr. Hancock, and every day. I know you got to go. You got a big day ahead, but tell people again. I asked about the money part. If we go from 4 teams, it makes $450 million. In theory, would 12 teams automatically be $1.35 billion? And those are big numbers. So just curious what your thoughts are on that. But money and the fan interest. We've got other issues. We talk so much about NIL and portal and all that, but now it's all about football. And the game is as good as it's ever been. And I think the greatest thing we can do is emphasize the history, the traditions, and the heroes of the game. That's why it's such a great fit at the College Football Hall of Fame. But give a message if you can about the money part, and then just the hope, and we'll let you go, the future of college football, because I think it's as bright as ever. It's always darkest before dawn, and I'm not going to let other people write the narrative. The games and the fans are the free market, and it's all going to be working out.
It's all going to be working out. And we got distracted when you asked me about the financial part before.
Sorry.
There is a lot of money. There's a lot of money in the current contract. We don't know what the revenue will be from a new contract. The math of trying to say it's triple, that may be a reach, because one thing on that is a lot of the value comes from the championship game, and we have a championship game now, and we'll still have one in the new day. So you have to be careful with how we do our math. But anyway, there is a lot of money, and the money all goes to the conferences and the schools, and to be spent as the conferences and schools see fit. We distribute the revenue to the conferences, and they're the ones who decide how much goes to each school. But all of the revenue that's coming in it's letting us do a lot of great things in college athletics. My daughter-in-law is a soccer coach in college, and her girls are able to travel and stay in hotels and get the best medical care and get scholarships. And they all know that money they get to do that because of the funds that come in for college football.
Yeah, the driver.
And economists will tell you this. There's another supply and demand market value matter at play here. Certain teams drive the revenue. We have the revenue we have because of certain teams, and those schools know that they bring the revenue in, and we've struck a nice balance that everybody does benefit, but the ones that bring the revenue benefit a little more, and that's just basic economics.
Yeah. I mean, listen. What gets people to watch TV, those programs that have those big brands, that doesn't happen overnight, and that's what tradition is. And you get these matchups. To me, my friend Harold Grader with the Liberty Bowl. I've known Harold a long time. I love the celebration of college football. If it's the playoffs, I'm going to watch the games because it's college, and I love college. I know what that means to people in a state, in a region, and all over the country. But I want to say, I know we've run out of time, how much we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to join us on Sidelines. Look forward to visiting with you again. But you're a genuinely sincere man, kind of the Ward Cleaver of college football. I like the way you approach it. You are like, I wake up every day, I have the greatest job in the world. You're grateful for the blessings that you have, and college football needs you, so please don't retire.
We've got good stewardship.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, but I have a question. Who is Eddie Haskell?
Oh, my God. Gee, Mrs. Cleaver, what a lovely blouse you have on. Mr. Cleaver, go on upstairs while he's up there.
60s can appreciate that.
We're going to think about who Eddie Haskell is, but that's some good. And Lumpy Rutherford as well.
Lumpy.
Clarence.
It's been fun.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Again, we really appreciate it. Have a great time at the College Hall of Fame and the SEC Media, and thank you for being here.
All right.
Thank you.
Care. Bye.
You bet. We're going to take a quick commercial break, be joined by Bo Carter from the Big 12 out in the Metroplex. I got to say it, Arlington, Dallas, Fort Worth. But we're going to talk about some Big 12. What's going on? What's coming your way? We're at SEC Media Days live from the Omni College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, the largest college sports market, 6.5 million people in America. And we'll be right back with more college football talk.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Well, and speaking of talking about who is Eddie Haskell, I'll tell you another one of my favorite all-time characters was on the Andy Griffith Show, Ernest T. Bass. Well, I love talking college football, especially when I'm dancing. Oh, I love it, man. Goober says, hey to Goober. Bill Hancock, man, that was cool. And he recognized the twins, Alex and Fitz. You talk about some tough kids. You got a dad like Rich from Atlanta, Jimmy, and you ain't wearing leotards and clam diggers like some of these people around here are wearing. I'm talking about men wearing pants like that. Put on a suit, son, and some white socks. Archie Bunker.
Bill did know who Sergeant Schultz was.
Oh, yeah. I know nothing, Schultz. Colonel Hogan, you cannot do such thing. General Balkaitai, Klink, you're an idiot. Hey, Bo Carter, you are not an idiot. You're smartest man from the Quad Cities, Sheffield, Muscle Shoals, Florence, and, Florence, Muscle Shoals, Sheffield. Name the fourth one. Anybody want to name it? I know it. Anyone? Bueller?
Somebody's got to know. The hometown of Helen Keller.
Yeah.
Tuscumbia.
Tuscumbia, that's right. Yes. Right there on Highway 72. There's a big marker there for Helen Keller. And absolutely. And
they have a summer play there all Friday, Saturday nights. The Miracle Workers on. So tell your folks from Memphis to drive down Highway 72 and head over there.
That's the old way I used to take to down to Auburn, and until they put Guthrie's Chicken Fingers in Memphis a few years ago, I used to go on. Sometimes I'd just go on the Moulton at 157 and 72 to get me a 3 or 4 boxes of Guthrie's Chicken Fingers from my parents. They loved it, even if it was 3 hours old. You could heat it back up. But Bo Carter, man, thanks for taking time to join us on this Thursday morning. You Big 12 office there in Dallas. You go to a lot of media days. Right now we're live in Atlanta at the Omni College Football Hall of Fame for SEC Media Days. And great segment there. Learned a lot from Bill Hancock, Executive Director of the College Football Hall of Fame. What do you look for? You've been in sports information on the media, on the PR side a long time. You're a great writer for the baseball writers, the Football Foundation. But what is your takeaway so far from what you've observed of SEC Media Days, the coaches, the players, just stories that are coming out of there? The only really negative so far is a misstep by one of Texas A&M's players, and I'm sure he'll be dealt with appropriately, and he may miss the first half of the Sam Houston State game. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but, he's in timeout. I know that. I don't know if he's going to be at Media Days or not, but so far it's been a great event. And can you imagine, and you know better than anybody, the behind-the-scenes efforts of the people from the Southeastern Conference, College Football Hall of Fame, the Omni, and everybody, they work together. It is a beautiful thing to see, and we're all lucky that they do it.
Really is amazing. The first SEC Media Days was in 1986. They had the old SWC Skywriters who were from like 1974 to 85, started by Scott Hunter and a couple of people that flew to different locations of the SEC, and the Southwest Conference had started that in 1962, so they kind of dovetailed off that a little bit. But one other quick note, now I'll get off the television thing. We watched too much when we were growing up, Rob. I'm sorry. But, George Lindsey, who played Goober on the Andy Griffith Show, played quarterback at what's now North Alabama, Florence State. My mother was a classmate of his in like the late 40s, early 50s. So if you ever look up Goob's autobiography, was a quarterback. I don't think he went to class, but he actually majored in drama there. So he turned his major into a pretty good career there.
Remember when Gomer would go up there and go, Come on, Goober. Do it. You go, do Cary Grant. And you go, Judy. Oh.
Quite a character, really. He was a great guy off camera too. Did a lot of. Remember the old show Hee Haw? He was on that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I guess too. So.
Hee Haw had perhaps the best looking women on any TV show in the history of TV shows, and as great looking as all those beautiful women were, was there anybody better as a spokesman for your car company than Junior Samples up there going FBR 549? I loved it. Let me say something real quick too about one of our sponsors that's making SEC Media Days possible, Miss Rubin's Rubs. Since 1935, from the old penny profit market grocery store in Montgomery, 2 Greek immigrants came to America, the American dream, ladies and gentlemen. White magic, black magic, seafood magic, and Creole magic, plus the marinades. Where can you get them? Piggly Wiggly, Publix. Ask your manager. If they don't have them, say, I'll be back here when you do. In the meantime, Walmart, Amazon's websites, or MissRubinsRubs.com. Go there. We put the Bo, we did a MJ over at the Cherry Farm last week, did a 15-pound brisket with black magic and a little bit of white magic on there, cooked 15 hours. That's like about an hour a pound. It was so delicious, and the bark on there was so delicious and crunchy. It was dripping kind of like honey. It was so delicious. And he also had some wings and 6 slabs of ribs that fall off the bones. And I'm getting hungry talking about it because I hadn't eaten yet. I've been down in the basement drinking coffee with Chris Farley again. If you end up like me, you're going to end up living in a van down by the river. Bo Carter.
Hey, Rob, I got a question for Bo. Hey, let me ask you, is this Big 12 upcoming realignment going to be the greatest example of addition through subtraction in the history of the world? We have surmised that we think the Big 12 might come out of this stronger because of all the realignment that's going on. Do you see the beneficiary being the Big 12 of a possible dissolution of the ACC via the SEC and more of a picking off of the Pac-10, primarily UW and Oregon by the Big 10? Do you think this could strengthen the Big 12 and allow it to be that third conference as we go forward?
Jimmy, very good question. Monday, there were 3 or 4 reports coming out of Washington, Oregon, and then some from Dallas area that the talks had kind of bogged down. So, as you know, the Big 12 has a new commissioner, Brett Yormark, who was fabulous in the NBA and NASCAR, but his college experience, except for being a great sports promoter, is a little bit nil. But I think the guy has contacts all over the world, especially with television. So, and this is all, you know, as you guys know too, being driven by television markets, by what's going on. In Washington and Oregon, I think, are the 2 keys right now. They're balking, from what I've read in reports or whatever. They'd like to kind of stay with the Pac-12 and maybe bring a couple of Mountain West teams or Boise State or somebody in there. So it's really it's the rumors are flying every 30 minutes, Jimmy. That's a great question.
Well, hey, there's no secret that if Oregon and Washington exit the Pac-12, that conference is done.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. But at the same time, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to forge a merger between the Big 12 and the Pac-12 to possibly be in that conversation with 20 teams. If they were able not only to grab the Phoenix market, but also the San Francisco and Seattle markets, to where you would have some brand names. Now, it's not going to match the brand name presence of the Big Ten and the ACC, but it is going to encompass a huge swath of the country, basically from west of the Mississippi all the way to the West Coast, and then you include UCF and Cincinnati and the teams east of the Mississippi.
Some fun travel, some fun trips with volleyball and softball teams. But you're, you know what, really ironic about this whole thing, Jimmy and Rob, in the late middle '90s when Arkansas left the Southwest Conference and Texas and Oklahoma were kind of looking at different things because of TV contracts running out. Texas and Oklahoma had serious talks with the Pac-12. In fact, a couple of Texas administrators, for like the last 20 or 25 years, we should have joined the Pac-12. Or, it makes more sense. And we got, what are they? They've got some really long road trips for their fans or whatever. But there are always those kind of talks. And also, at this point, y'all are totally right. It's sort of a necessity that they get together, or else you're going to have the SEC and the Big Ten pretty much running the football world.
Well, we got to be careful with that. And Frank Duffy, great questions. Jimmy Hodge as well. And I needed to let you know Frank Duffy's on with us over here at Media Days as well, Bo. And I think that the concern has been asked over and over to the point, ad nauseum, about the Wednesday night volleyball game, Southern Cal at Rutgers. I mean, they ain't going to be taking the Greyhound because there'd be 683 stops around trip. It'd take you 3 months to get there and back. But if those who ride the Hound get there on time, I'm just not sure in what time zone or what century. But anyway, we think about the Big 12, and this is critical. Population in the middle of the country is not what it is on the West Coast or the East Coast, especially in the Northeast. But we got to preserve the game. And Jimmy's made a good point earlier in the show. Where football is strong, it's really strong. I mean, you get down here in the South, college football, it's stronger than 50 acres of fresh cut onions. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You can't beat that. But in the Midwest, it's huge too. In the Big Ten, I'm concerned about out in the Pac-12. I think I read recently 18% of people out there would call themselves college football fans. And, there's a lot of people, and again, Jimmy's pointed this out, the largest TV market, DirecTV, is in until maybe recently. I don't know if they've done it yet or not. For the 12 years that Larry Scott was commissioner of the Pac-12, Bo Carter, DirecTV didn't carry the Pac-12 network.
That's exactly right.
That's crazy.
One thing that interesting as far as that goes too, the Pac-12 football attendance, and this is just it's fact, not ripping on them or anything, but the attendance has been dwindling for years, and for maybe the last 15, 20 years. You remember you had the great USC dynasties there in the early 2000s, and those sort of NCAA problems, et cetera, kind of went by the boards. Pete Carroll left, and I guess that sort of dropped the program off a little bit. But no, you're exactly right. They've had issues going on. Remember UCLA's basketball dynasty in the 60s and 70s. And as Bill Walton always points out, the Conference of Champions. I think
the Conference of Champions
now won 300 men and women's NCAA basketball. Of course, beach volleyball and water polo,
synchronized swimming. Don't forget that.
Well, I will rip on them because my LSU Tigers went out to play in the Rose Bowl, and when you go to a Pac-12 game event, it's an outing. When you go to an SEC or a Big 12 or a Big 10 football game, it's a pilgrimage. That's the difference.
That's a great way to put it. You're right. And there's just so, and someone else pointed this out, demographically, there's just so much to do, in Los Angeles. You've got all the tourist attractions, Oregon and Washington. You've got the mountains and the beautiful scenery, camping, et cetera. Football, and Rob hit the nail on the head. Football is probably a 15 to 20% interest of people out there, mainly from alumni loyalty, not so much even football loyalty.
And that's what's hurt them is that you're not seeing that grassroots upheaval of populist support to save college football. I wonder if that was the lead story on the nightly news there in Los Angeles on TV. You really got to wonder how big a deal was that. And Bo, from a media perspective, crafting the story, writing it, the narrative. What's the Pac-12? Their office is in San Francisco. When I think of college football and tough, hard-nosed, blue-collar players, that ain't San Francisco, okay?
No.
That
ain't a poker tell.
Yeah. You ain't gonna get guys named Bubba and Joe Willie Namath. They ain't coming from San Francisco. They charge $8 million a year, I think, for the lease for the Pac-12 conference office and headquartered in San Francisco. In comparison, the Southeastern Conference in Birmingham, the city that knows how to do it right. They charge them, I believe, Winthrop, Mortimer, Randolph, member trading places, pay up $1. No, $1.
That's right. That is true.
I mean,
and actually, too, George Klivikoff, the new whose background was the MGM Grand Resorts and entertainment industry, they are talking, and I think they're going to implement it in 2023. Pardon me, where they go to a virtual office. They would only meet in San Francisco for conference meetings, and then all the people, I think they've got about a 35-person office. They would all work out of their homes or some sort of a, like an office rental type thing if they needed it. And so they would only come together, which I think they kind of got the idea from the COVID-19 days when everybody had to work from home, et cetera. But it would sure save them that $8 million lease they're paying on the tower out there, I guess.
Well, but
Klivikoff is a very innovative guy.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize he is the guy that created Hulu's streaming service.
Oh, yeah.
And he and Yormak are very similar in that way. And that's why, because of what these guys have done in their past and their familiarity with digital media services, is why I think a possible Big 12, Pac-12 merger could occur, because they both realize the importance of both their conferences and the regions that are within their respective conference geographic footprint. Is critical to stay in the mainstream of what's happening in college football. And so that's why I think you could very well see something happening sooner rather than later.
Very good point. And Rob had a little bit talking about the DirecTV absence out there in the Pac-12. The biggest thing now, I think ESPN's losing $600,000 plus subscribers a year to Hulu. Other things, they're really trying to go with ESPN Plus to keep the profit margin. And Disney likes to see a black figure's bottom line, so they're doing everything they can to try to use imaginative means to streaming, et cetera, to keep the audience there. So
well, you got to fight.
Both negotiating television contract. The Big 12 and the Pac-12 are both doing that, which really makes it even more complicated. They've got a year. They start the year before the contract runs out, so it's going to be a very interesting next 10 or 12 months.
Yeah,
if Disney likes black figures, they better start rethinking some of their principles.
Yeah,
yes,
and that's the thing about it is and we've said this is the cord cutters. You look in a lot of markets. Go back over the last 10 years. In some markets, 70 or 80% of the people that were on the cord, cable, they've cut the cord and they're streaming. And that's where we're going. And that's why we keep saying, is Fox going to try to buy ESPN, Disney? I'll tell you one thing. There are a lot of people in the national media, sports media, that have their heads up in the clouds. I mean, they're too busy to talk to you. You got to go through all these booking people. Hey, man, we are the people that make you who you are, the fans.
That's right.
And I'm going to tell you something. They need to think about that. We don't need to be preached to by people with, that never even barely finished high school. That's why we stay out of politics, and we're all about sports. That's what we do. That's who we are. It's a reprieve. I mean, I don't care what your political beliefs are. Sports pull us together, don't they?
You're right. I mean, it's kind of like the old, remember the college thing where some of the administrators kind of lose track of what's, reality or whatever they'd see. Ivory Towers theories. That's really, you seem to see a lot of that in television, and, they have a reality check at some point.
Yeah.
DirecTV is going to know it the minute after that Sunday ticket runs out. Because they're going to lose 461 Skyline up here in the North Georgia mountains. Because I can see me throwing that satellite off the roof now.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you something, and we only have a few minutes left. We don't want to be preached to. We want to hear y'all talk about sports. Okay. I don't want some guy on TV yelling and screaming about making everything in sports something that's not.
ESPN's been horrible about that lately.
Yeah. We want to be. Hey, what did the late Kurt Cobain say? Remember Bo Carter? Here we are, entertain us. Think about that. Nirvana. I mean, they were right. Here we are, entertain us. Bo, like I say, we're about out of time, but we'll get you back on next week. I love this perspective. Before you go, what are you seeing in this right now, this pause in the action with conference expansion? You think it's over for now because we're so close to practice starting August 1st around the country? And boy, are we glad to be talking about football and not all that other stuff.
Right. No, exactly. I think, as you guys are knowing, I'm no offense to friend Jack Turner, but lawyers are getting involved.
Oh, we love Jack. He's our attorney in residence.
You better have all the I's dotted and T's crossed on these preliminary contracts, et cetera. But no, I totally agree, Rob. I think, with football coming up, they want to try to concentrate on the student athletes. Just about everybody's had media days so far, and that's going to be, they're getting back to the matter at hand or whatever. But it's going to keep going as until something gets resolved or whatever. And I think these other conferences are not going to sit by and watch the SEC and the Big Ten sort of take over. One quick thing too, I saw Commissioner Sankey said Monday that they do not want to pull out of they do not want to at this point start an all football circuit with a czar commissioner or whatever. They want to try to work within NCAA guidelines and see who the new NCAA president is. So that's encouraging sign.
Yeah, I like the term commissioner. Things didn't end too well for the Romanovs, the last czars. so well, and by the way, I tell you, my choice for college football commissioner is a McClintock High School graduate there in Phoenix or Scottsdale, Rick Neuheisel, Coach Neuheisel.
Yes,
that'd be a great call.
Yeah, he's an attorney.
Bill Hancock's names come up.
Oh yeah, I mean both of them.
Also a great call.
He's connected everywhere.
So yeah.
Hey, Bo, real quick, are you hearing any talk at all during the Big 12 media days about, because we've heard since Fox and ESPN have been involved in a joint venture.
Quickly, we have 30 seconds.
With both the Big 10 and the Big 12 of Fox possibly pulling out, because they'd have to be careful because ESPN is really close to controlling all of these televised games now.
Yes, and a good point, Jimmy. The other thing too is how do they get the money to make, to make the payouts on this, because it's going to be, like Bill was talking about, it's going to be into the billions of dollars, and I know they're all have a lot of money bags at both places, but at some point you really have to kind of decide where it's going to go in priorities. So it's just ongoing.
Yeah, great stuff. Look, we've run out of time. I hate it. We'll get you back on next week, Bo Carter. Really appreciate it. Hey, we'll be with you again tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Central. Hear us on 680 The Fan Podcast Park right after this. And also tune in 11 a.m. Eastern, Southern Sports Today app with Chuck Oliver and Dan Matthews, the king of college football, for more great coverage. Go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. And remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Let's all keep making it get better. I believe firmly in American exceptionalism. No doubt about it. I will never waver on that. See you tomorrow. We're out of here.